Oh, is that what the
Yes,
school doc
yes.
is?
Let me get those to you.
All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the stream. I'm guessing people are still should be kind of slowly working their way in. My name is ArtOfTurtle. I am one of the coaches for the CPL, specifically under Operation Indecision, and this is the first episode of the series of the little lectures um, for the CPL. Today, I'm going to be talking about a much more mechanical-minded concept today. I'd like to go over the build order progressions. Now, what a build order progression is the pivot point to take you from your next step of your build to help you advance through your build order. If that doesn't make sense, that's all right. I'll have a chance to kind of go over build orders as well as how you really achieve them. Before anything, I'm just going to go straight through definition of a build order. A build order is the act of reaching a unit composition with all the proper upgrades at a designated time. A good example of that would be a 5-pack time push, 3-hatch Muta, even +1 Sarah GT. The idea is that you want to receive a certain unit composition so that you can start creating your attacks and start figuring out how you plan on expanding and defending your bases. I also wanted to clarify a little bit of a confusion that you'd see on Team Liquid. When you look at build orders, you'll have another kind of subset category, which is actually an opening. And an opening is just the first starting moves that you make in a game without having to worry about what your opponent plans on doing. Example of that would actually be Overpull is a ZVP opening. One Racks Expand is a TVP opening or even a TVZ opening, depending upon how you need to go. Forge Fast Expand is a PVZ opening. All of those don't necessarily require you guys to actually have to change your build order too much. It allows you to begin your starting goal, and it's really important to know the difference between the build order and the opening itself. Now, today I do have 6 different replays I'd like to go over. 3 from 3 different matchups, specifically going to be looking at a PVT, a ZVP, as well as a TVP, and going over some of what will help you out in trying to move your builds forward. Start off, we're going to go over a PVT build. Now, I've got one of the CPL replays that was played recently from one of our players. I'll be taking that replay, taking down the timings and making it of where those timings are, and then immediately finding a pro replay that has a similar opening and the similar build order to help you understand the bigger difference on what makes the build order progression itself very important. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the first game. Now, this match is actually just a ladder match that one of my teammates was able to post online. Quake Kong versus a different Korean player, Mr. Bar None. And what I'm going to be looking at is how her build order progression works out and kind of make notes on how the differences are as we go through. And I'm only looking at just 4 specific things in this specific build order and opening. This is going to be a 21 Nexus. I don't really care what the Terran opponent's doing. We're just going to be focusing on what the Protoss is doing. So, as you know, 21 Nexus goes up with the standard. You get your pylon, you get your gas, you get your gateway, and then you get your gas, and then you get your Dragoon and Dragoon. But there's a way to make that be extremely efficient throughout the entire process. It actually has to come up with having your probe or your whatever you're using to create, whether it's a drone or get out just a little bit quicker. And a way to kind of be diligent upon that is kind of to see what the difference between the timings really are going to be. Now, if you look right up here, the gas has gone down about the 146 points. As I go ahead and pause it as we begin to work our way through the build. Now, just a little key thing to note is that this is an opening. The one gate into a gas would be considered the opening. But in this match, we're only going to be looking up all the way to the 21 Nexus point, and really just pointing out how inefficient or efficient you can be in terms of getting your units and getting the composition that you want out. So just to make a note, at 146, Quake.com's gas did go down. And almost immediately you'll see that the cybernetic score also goes down as well too, and that timing would be just a little over the 203, 204 mark. And the goal here is just to get the Dragoon out, use it to deny the scouting SCV as well as possibly put pressure up on the front, and be able to easier expand off that. So right about this point is when the build order portion starts to kind of kick into effect, trying to make your units a lot more efficient and go. Now, Quake.com is going to go ahead and opt for, if you can have the cybernetic score highlighted, she's going to immediately go ahead and get her Dragoon range. Thing is, though, she's got to wait just a second for that because of she made a probe. There was something that wasn't quite optimized in her build, but there it goes. It finally kicked in and updated on my thing. So she opted for the Dragoon range first before she got her gateway going, her Dragoon popping in. That's kind of an important note to note between the pro player and our CPL players. There's a certain order of things that you can plan and need to do, and there isn't necessarily a right or wrong way to do it, but understanding where the advantage and the disadvantage comes, and whether or not it's fully, possible to be able to get away with something like that, or if it's inefficient because there's not as much of a difference. At the moment, the Dragoon range is going to be first over the Dragoon. The 21 Nexus did go down, which is, it's pretty well strong. If you look back at the Terran's base, he's got a pretty good amount of things going on. The bunker's going to be up to deny Dragoon from walking in. The command center is already finished compared to the 21 Nex. I mean, overall, it looks like they're just doing this, if you look at the Terran's base, just the one rack expanded to being a little bit more of a map. 21 Nexus overall is a pretty good response for them. So up until this point, when he started to actually attack, that attack came in about that 430 mark. Bunkers up, Dragoons are going. But what if I told you it's possible to even make that quicker and continue to hold on to your build? This is what I'd like to get more into detail about the build order progression, the way you choose to use your units, the way you choose to create your units, how you plan on getting them out. And it really comes down to all these small little details in your play. And a good example is, I'm going to go ahead and back this up just a little bit. All right, there we go. Take note of just looking at the Nexus for a second. I want you to see when the probe is made, almost immediately, whether it goes directly into mining. That's actually a part of your build order progression for making sure you have enough units and minerals to immediately go from there. Probe queues up, it's ready to go, and immediately starts mining out. That would you be consider a really efficient way of going through your build. But as you can tell, the minerals, gas, and everything doesn't line up quite as quickly. And instead of being able to get your Singularity Dragoon range out immediately, it takes just a second. And that these are the small little things you should be looking about and thinking about as you go through your builds is, how can I make it quicker to mine? How can I make it so that everything lines up? And at the moment, in this replay, the lineups are pretty well set. But the pro player, as I'm going to actually get to right now, I'll show you that the big difference in terms of even making things go even quicker. As players, you're not going to be able to retain that perfection. but you can still try to reach out, and you can still try to keep yourself mindful and cognizant of what's going on. So, Work8, who is my observer, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this replay and start up the second one. So, bear with us a sec as we try to get that all lined up. My thing's starting to error out. Give me a sec. Sorry about that. My, the usual Blizzard glitches won't let you see replays or create games for a moment. Give me a sec. I need to restart my game. Apologize about for some of the delay. Well, if it's not going, I'm actually going to have Cold Warcakes. Can you go ahead and just jump into the second game?
Yeah.
Go ahead and just host up the second game, and I'll give you the timestamps to kind of look at.
All right, you want me to just go or wait for you to join my lobby?
And mind it off. I've got your viewpoint pulled up now.
Okay. I'm going in.
All right, so with the Pro Play replay I have, this is actually C as No Insung and Spiritos as Beth. So it's basically two pro players really going at it. But I want you to go ahead and fast forward yourself up to about the 120 mark. So right about here. So this is where the first big difference starts to take place, is how quick the gas is going to get coming out. So with QuakeCom's build earlier, she was getting the 12 gas, the 10 gateway, and the 12 gas. But the Pro Replay person will actually have that up way, way earlier. And the big reason for that is because every time that a probe is made, it's immediately being sent back to mine. And it's looking for the mineral patch that actually doesn't have anything on there, so that it immediately starts to begin its mining. Or he'll shuffle one of the probes to move to another mineral patch that's a little further away. That way, the one that immediately comes out goes directly towards that mineral patch. So go ahead and take it at 1x, and I'll show you what it means. So the next probe did come out. In just a second, he'll immediately send out a probe towards that gas so that it begins to start mining. Now that small was he chose the closest one to come up there, immediately place that gas, go straight. That's a very good example of a optimization that would allow you to move your build a little bit farther forward, as well as continue to keep your economy growing. But in this example, the gas came out at about the 137 mark, which was a complete 10 seconds quicker than QuickComp's gas. Being within 4 to 5 seconds of that won't make as much of a difference, but being later than that will begin to show small inefficiencies in your build and not allow you to move out quicker and be more active on the map. And stuff like that actually begins to slowly cascade in terms of being able to get your timings going. So the next big difference on that is when the Dragoon comes out to be able to deny the SCV as well as scout out from the front. What's going to happen in just a second, he's going to send his probe out. He's going to go ahead and begin his Dragoon and then start his range. And this is kind of a big note right here in terms of the efficiency. Your range, a quicker range, isn't necessarily going to mean that you're going to be able to beat down any faster than you would if you would have gotten your Dragoon first. So go ahead and go. If you've got the gateway highlighted, almost immediately you'll see that cybernetic score start to go down. And there it is. No hesitation on that. That's another way of saying, that's a way of kind of progressing your build forward, is making sure that your unit is exactly where it needs to be in order for it to. And off of that, deciding to scout off of that allows that unit to your probe to almost immediately feel like it's not wasting any of its time. And also, when you create something, sending it straight back to mining, especially as Protoss, would be a huge little. And even the pro players will miss out on some of this stuff where you'll see them idle for maybe half a second. But at this point right here, about 241, there it is, 241, the Dragoon comes. And just for comparison, QuakeCom's Dragoon didn't come out until about 316. And then finally, the Goon range comes out about 248, which is a whopping, that's about a 6-second difference between the Goon range timing on both players. And the Goon timing is about actually 30 seconds later. So just from, go ahead and pause it from this point. The advantage of being able to have your Dragoon out earlier, as I said, it's definitely about having that SCV in and being able to deny that mine. But the quicker Dragoon really means that you've got more playing power up to this point. Anytime you can shorten your playing power or shorten the time it takes to get into your playing power will allow you to make much more quicker decisions, much more efficient decisions. So I'm going to go ahead and have him move on to the next replay. If I can have you head off to, I believe it's 3A, I believe. Yeah, 3A. Now, this is one of the CPL players, Diggard, attempting his crack at doing a 3-hatch Hydra buff. But there's quite a bit of inefficiencies in trying to get to it, and there's only 4 things looking at. We're looking for when his 3rd hatchery goes down, when his gas gets pushed down, and when his den gets pushed down. Those 3 timings, if managed properly, will allow you to be even quicker and faster to the punch. In ZVP, there's a very specific timing issue that comes along very early. That's the idea that a probe can come in and deny and stop your hatchery from going up and make it seem like you're running inefficiently. But overall, as long as you get a hatchery down, your third hatchery down at a decent timing, regardless of whether the probe is harassed, will allow you to move through your build order a heck of a lot quicker. So in this example, he's being denied and he's going to try to go ahead and get. Instead, he just goes ahead and goes straight to the third base, which is a proper response to that. You still have to deal with the probe, but at the very least, something gets put down. On this map specifically, it's Bloody Ridge. It's not going to be that big of an issue overall. But go ahead and go set it down to 1x now. So the big thing I want to note is that if you look at his minerals compared to the third hatch will go ahead and get up, but it's definitely just a little bit delayed off of that, mostly because of the probe, which makes it somewhat inefficient, but it's not going to be the end of the world if something like that happens to you, especially if you're a Zerg. And denying that isn't going to be the ultimate win as a Protoss player. So if you look inside the Zerg's main base, you'll see that the gas has finally started up, and that gas timing was approximately at 3:05. So it was 3 hatches before gas. But this is where the difference starts to add up, where nothing's in there mining for a good 3 or 4 seconds. Having your guys go directly into that mining will push your build order forward and help you progress even quicker all the way. Another little key point was that his den did not go down immediately when it had that 50 gas to allow you to get the quickest hydras up into his front and place pressure. Instead, it's delayed by about 50 minerals or approximately 4.5 seconds. And from here, making the bus timing, which is a very tight time, is just easily set back by some of the more what I would consider a bit of a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and have you exit out of this replay, and we're going to go ahead and compare directly to the timing of a pro player's 3-hatch Hydra time. So that should be the 3V, 3-hatch Hydra, Forge FE hold. And this replay is going to be of Hero and Best. I think that it's no joke that both of those players are extremely good at what they do. But Hero being basically the pioneer of making 3-hatch Hydra back in 2018 and 2019, extremely popular before he went to the military. Now, sometimes the timing can be a little bit different, but Fighting Spirit is a pretty good telltale of knowing how quick things will go out. So I'll go ahead and have you 2x all the way up until about the 220 mark. As you can tell, the moment that these drones are hacked, they immediately go straight back to mining. That's kind of part of the build order progression portion of it. The moment he has enough minerals for that overlord, he's immediately making it, doing everything he can not to delay any portion that allows his build to move forward. Immediately getting that spawning full the moment he has 200 minerals. It just to make a side note, keep pausing for just a second. I just wanted to talk about how when you do get through and you do have those moments where you're ready to build, the best way to kind of make it efficiently go is to actually be about 20 to 30 minerals setting your building unit, whether it's a drone, probe, or SCV, out. Especially if it's close to your base, about 30 to 20 minerals will do. A little bit further out, you can push off to 60 or 70 minerals at that 60, 70 mineral points. So if you wanted to build a supply depot, then you'd want to send your SCV out at about the 60 to 70 minerals beforehand, especially in the beginning of the game. Same with the pool and the den. You definitely want to be just ready to go, immediately ready to mark. Go ahead and start pushing forward. So from here, he's not being contested, so it's a little bit easier for him to get through his time. You could also just be lucky and not get scouted, and that's something you should definitely, don't take for granted. So go ahead and bring it back down to 1x. Go ahead and look at the third base real quick. And if you notice, he's got about 284, 292 floating for just a second, but he immediately puts that down. And that's about that 246 mark, 245 mark, which is about 10 seconds faster than what Digger was able to pull off. Granted, he was being harassed a little bit, but the big difference you're going to notice is that gas went in immediately. That gas went down about 305 or 250. 250 gas compared to Digger's 305, which is about a 15-second margin. As well, the den is going to go down even quicker because he immediately puts his guys right onto gas. And the moment he has that 50 minerals, he already has, or that 50 gas, he already has a unit ready to go to start churning out Hydra. No time wasted on trying to get that den out. Even so, if you look at him, he could have been about an extra 8 minerals before that to immediately throw down that den. But nonetheless, this is still a good build order progression that follows all the way through. And overall, 10 seconds can be the difference between busting or defending against a Hydra bust. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and go over the last one, so you can go ahead and move on to the next one. As our final example of build order progression, this will be a little bit more focused, tailored on something that's, something that's just a little bit more specific. Those two builds before, they're just kind of openings, but this opening specifically will be a lot more complicated to follow. Now, what I did was I had Nablime go out and give me his best version of what he thinks that the one Rax fast expand against the Protoss is. And so go ahead and pass forward to about the 220 mark. But while we're waiting, if you guys do have any questions at the end of the last replay, I'm more than willing to take a few questions. If I don't know the answer immediately, I know how to find it, so don't be shy if you guys are watching. Feel free to ask any questions that you feel pertaining to this particular topic. So what I'm looking at in the 1 Rax fast expand is I'm actually looking at 5 different timings. When the command center goes down, when their gas goes down, when their bunker goes down, and when their first factory goes down, as well as when the tank pops out. Because each and every second on that will matter in being able to properly defend against something of that. In this example, go ahead and bring it back down to 1x. The command center's timing for that is actually at 232. He only made a Marine and then immediately made his command center. And I want to make you guys make note of that, because in the pro replay, it's actually a little bit further back for when he takes his command center, but it's still quite effective. And the bunker also coming down a little bit later as well as compared to the pro. But there is kind of a reason for that due to how the scouting is. And I did just ask Sublime just to give me his best impression of the 1 Rax fast, all the way up until the point of when that first tank comes out. Now, the point of this specific build is to take an expansion and feel safe about it so that you can get quite a bit of an economic advantage, especially if it's scouted late or if it's not pressured nearly enough. But just overall, that bunker came down about 315. If you can kind of look towards where the factory is going to be placed in just a second. There it is. Factory, I think the factory kind of went down a little earlier. Well, I've got the time. That factory went down exactly at 345. he's kind of attacking his own bunker to just kind of simulate that there could be a Dragoon attacking it at that point. That is about the proper time for the Dragoon to start. But in moments like these are the most notorious moments where somebody of lower caliber of player will definitely falter and start to mess up. So immediately getting your add-on, which looks like he delayed it for just a second, definitely sets your build order back and creates a bad build order progression. The whole goal of this entire build is to get your tank out and get out siege so that the Protoss will stop pressuring you from there, and then allow you to make your transition into whatever build you're doing. But overall, his tank should be starting up in just a minute, and that's going to be about the 522 mark. Looks like he's just a little bit late off of that in this replay. He did get siege first. You know, the add-on, everything he's doing is quite efficient for his level of play. Now that the tanks come out, from this point on, it's really just about seeing whether or not you'll be able to. So go ahead and pause it at this point because I kind of want to talk a little more specifically about this matchup pertaining to the one rack specs. As Terran, you have 3 different worries as whether or not you're going to be able to keep your bunker going, whether or not a DT is going to walk into your base, and whether or not Reavers are coming. Those are the 3 things that you should be thinking about and how you want to defend it as you pull off builds. Most Reaver stuff don't happen until a little bit later, closer to 7.5. But you will still have stuff banging down at your front. And so keeping on top of the progression of your build will make it so that you can easier defend for yourself. But as you do builds, always keep in mind the different things that can come and attack you, especially in specific matches. So let's go ahead and move on to the pro replay where they do their version of the one rack. All right, in this example, this is going to be C versus best. I'm going to go ahead and have you go 4x all the way up until about the 2.5 minute. And then just go ahead and hover your camera right over the top of the natural. So from this point, he's obviously putting the barracks on the low ground. A reason, just to kind of clarify reasons for that, it allows it to immediately start setting up a defensive posture. Now, the difference on this is that he gets his Marine out first. But after his Marine comes out, he finally decides to lift his barracks and then place down the command center, which kind of slows it down just slightly. But he also opts to get a quicker bunker. So that CC went down about 238, and Nablayim's CC went down about 232, which is about a 6-second difference between the two. But the big difference that happens is actually in its gas timing. The gas for the pro player goes down about 2 seconds. 2 seconds mean that's a 2-second quicker factory, a 2-second quicker tank, 2 seconds quicker on getting that siege boat out. And it actually starts to add up over some time. I'm kind of talking more on the specifics on timings. But the real thing I want you guys to focus on is that when you go through your build orders, how quick does it really take for you to place down a building? And how can you make it so that when you place it down, you're immediately ready to do the very next step of your build? Now, the factory will go down about 3:45, which is pretty much the exact same timing somehow. The big difference that'll fall off through this is that he opts for an academy a little bit early. Don't feel too discouraged if you see something like that and go, "Oh, maybe I should do this exactly." Well, it's situational and why you want to get your academy. Your academy is so that you can get scanned and so that you can either detect DT or scan gateway counts. Oh, hello, hello.
Hello? Hello?
Sorry about that. So from this point, the tank has finally come out, which is actually a full 13 seconds quicker. The first tank starting, at least. You know, there's the beat down on the bunker. Without even knowing, he kind of maybe studying him a little bit, knowing what his style is like. He wants to get a quicker third. Some of that stuff's kind of more safe for advanced ideas on that. But the big thing is making sure that you're able to work through to your build to not die. And at the moment, the CJ is going to come out. It's going to be in a position to go ahead and push away the Dragoons. And it's going to be in a position where it can't be targeted by the Dragoons. And with the siege mode just almost finished, he's able to defend his entire base right before the 6-minute mark. And pretty much all of that aggression right then and there stopped. So go ahead and just pause it from this point. Him being able to immediately get his gas time, put down his factory, get his add-on, all of those things, the timing it takes to get through those 3 specific actions has led to him to having his tank out and having siege mode ready to go so that he can spend the least amount of time setting up to repair his bunker. I just want our players to kind of think more about how they can move through their builds and move through them. And these are some of the better examples of trying to get through that. So now, at the end of the cast, I'll go ahead and have the replay pack that I went over available so that you can have some of the pro replays of that. I also encourage you guys, if you can, talk to your coaches about getting replays from them. That allows you to contact and kind of line up your build order timings and get you through some more of your build order progression. But from there, just to kind of give you the idea of the whole build order progression point, it's to get you onto the next step. He couldn't have gotten his tank out if his factory wasn't on time. He couldn't have gotten his siege mode out if his add-on wasn't added on immediately. He wouldn't have been able to defend this if Dragoons just kept kind of pouring through. If he didn't actually have his, all of these steps fall through all at the same time. And well, thank you. That's the end of my lessons. At this time, I'll go ahead and start taking questions. Sorry, I'm a little lagging on the Twitch chat if anybody's talking in the Twitch chat.
We do have a question from Strom. Do you recommend to players to actually find a pro replay of their build and compare their timings?
I definitely do. Anytime that, if you're trying to follow a very specific replay, if you don't have it already, you're more than welcome to go on to bwreplays.com, which is where I got a lot of my replays at, or directly asking your coaches to see what they're doing as well.
And once you realize that they are different, what is the step to take to improve that?
The first step you need to understand is what the goal of their move is. For example, in the last two replays that I went over with Nablime and C, he decided to get his academy a lot earlier, and the eBay for Nablime went down a little bit later. Both of them proper responses. But you just have to understand what the goal of diverting off of your build would be. I'll give another example for PVZ. When you're setting up to do a +1 Zealot timing, and then you realize that the Zerg instead is going for Hydras. +1 timing attack will not really pan out too well. You can still continue to go down that path, but you don't want to follow it exactly to the T. So looking at your situations and watching replays in those specific situations would definitely help you out.
All right, we've got another couple questions. From Hello Bacon 480. How deep into the game should your build order be? In the mid game, all the way up to a big push?
That's a good question. When you talk about the build order, I like to kind of consider your mid game portion to be right past that 7-minute. When you're looking at build orders, you definitely want to have the goal of just getting all the way through it as quick as you can. And most builds can be completed within that 7.5, 9-minute mark. From that 9-minute mark, then you want to try and transition to what I would consider the late game compositions. For Terran, the late game kind of already starts up, but you're just trying to build up your tank count and make sure that you have that 2-1 push. Now, you can't truly follow a 2-1 timing build order all the way through. The only thing you can follow through on is whether or not you've been able to macro up enough tanks and keep on top of your upgrades. So it's not necessarily to the big push. It's up to the point where you start to feel comfortable, specifically in the macro cycles that you start having.
All right, good stuff. We've got another question from Kazooie. How important is proper mineral split in the first 1 to 2 minutes? I compare 973 timing myself, and I realized the Overlord on Overpool can be from 52 seconds to 57 seconds, depending on how well you manage the first few seconds. Feel like those first seconds can be incremental. Also, tricks like boosting and micromanaging larva drones while doing nothing else.
That's actually a really good question. One of my teammates for my clan kind of made a note of that as well, and trying to figure out whether or not your timer is going to be on. Specifically for Zerg and the whole drone splits, you run into one very specific issue, and that's if you make your first drone, the very 4 drones that you start off with start to kind of glitch into the hatchery, and there's a chance for them to kind of mess up on their pathing. So with that being said, the first couple of seconds of the game are important, but I wouldn't put it off to be any more important than until you get past, 18 or 1900 MMR. Because 4 or 5 seconds in that game aren't going to make that big of a difference in a CPL level setting. At a tournament setting, a little higher than that, then I would definitely start thinking about trying to make sure that your drones are being put on the exact mineral patches that allow the most mining efficiency. Which Strom, I believe, is saying that Tai2 will go ahead and give a lecture on that, so be sure to tune in on that as well. Any more questions? Well, that looks like to be about all the time I have for today. Oh, well, I'm looking at the chat now, seeing if anybody still wanted one. Give it just a few more minutes on that. And again, you are always more than welcome to throw your questions in any one of the CPL Discord channels. Terran, Protoss, Zerg. There is a coach available, and we'll answer questions for each and every specific topic accordingly as well. And be sure to talk to your coaches. Your coaches are here. They're here to try to help you improve. Even if it doesn't seem right or it seems minuscule, feel free to answer that question as well.
We got one more from Strom Carlin. I think a lot of the reason people builds are messy is because they have trouble managing them. How do you recommend they practice their timings?
To give off a personal experience, which is something I've been working on for the past couple of days in terms of starting up the build, I've got a notepad that I have, and all it really has is the number of when I'm supposed to begin a certain unit, whether it's an overlord or a building. The way I'd recommend for you guys to try to help to clean up your builds is to actually just do them solo and by yourself. There are a couple of different maps that allow you to do it so that your computer opponent will go in there and bug you, although it's a little more difficult if you're trying to practice them on specific CPL maps. What I would encourage is a partner to come on to the same game as you, but instead of attacking each other back and forth, having a higher focus on going directly through your progression. No attacks, no scouting, just pure and simple. Put down that building the moment that you have it, that you have the money. Put down your next building the moment that it, or have your upgrade the moment that it pops up. Going ahead and just staring at them. Another thing that does also help me out is if there's a specific timing that I'm trying to look at, for example, I will actually already have one of my that building specifically that I'm looking for. For example, if it's a Hydra Den, and I want that Hydra speed immediately. The moment I put my Hydra Den down, I will hotkey it to 2, and then I will check back on it periodically until it finishes. That way, if I'm doing micro at the front, it'll help me out with the multitasking portion. But getting in the habit of hotkeying the things that you want to be upgraded almost immediately will definitely help you move through and upward towards your builds.
And this isn't my lecture, but I do have one thing I want to add on to that. Specifically for buildings, it's so much more important to have your worker where you want to place the building on time than it is to have that extra, like, maybe half a second of mining time. So if you're going to do this deliberate practice and really focus on nailing your build, make sure you're sending your workers out just before you have the number of minerals or before you have the number of resources. So that way they get to the position and you're just hitting 100 minerals for that first pylon. You're just hitting 200, 100 for that factory or something like that. We do have another one from Pete Twitch TV. How do you decide whether or not you should macro versus micro in fights? What do you think about that?
All right, so that decision is based upon whether or not you think you have, if you think you have your unit comp. Something that's really underrated in some of these fights or some of the lower level games is, well, I have the army, so maybe I should just go out and attack. Or I have the army and he's starting to hit on my armor, maybe I should take a defensive posture. If you feel like you've been macroing up extremely well, then I would say go straight for that micro battle, especially if you're sitting at 200. But if you feel that your army is definitely outmatched, or you feel you're not quite ready because you're getting through another macro cycle, pull everything you have back just a little bit. Force them to come closer into you. And you can, instead of going back to macro, you can just kind of watch and see whether or not they're going to commit to continuing their attack. Yeah, Hella Bacon does make a point. I have the chat open now. So yeah, Jinjin translated a flash conversation on important hotkeys in relation to hitting your build, like having your CCs on hotkeys up to a certain point, and then prediction buildings. So that's definitely, you don't have to follow exactly what Flash does, but he is really successful. So following him and his hotkey setups can possibly give you some success as well. So to follow up on what Pete's saying next, what if we both macroed well? Well, the answer to that is you're never going to really know how well your opponent macroed. You're only going to know the answer of how well you macroed. So if you ever plan on taking on micro battles, the best advice I can kind of give to you on that to know whether or not you've got the bigger army is making sure that you have the concave. You have the beginning of a surround. If his units are bottlenecked up very close together and not quite attacking or sieged in terms of your PVT, then you should go ahead and push forward from there. If you can create a concave. If you cannot create a concave, then I would definitely not recommend attacking into those positions. That's specifically over bridges, up ramps, or even down ramps, in areas that are extremely tight where there's small room in between two different wall areas. Those positions are really just saved for best utilized in a defensive posture. All right, with that being said, I've pretty much gone over the time I can give for the day. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today. I hope you guys had a chance to learn a little bit more about the build order progression as well as the timing. Again, please feel free, send questions back onto your Discords, back to your coach. You're more than welcome to send me messages and ask me to take a look at replays. Doesn't matter what team you're on and overall. Again, thank you, Cold Warpgate, for being my observer for that, and as well, Lise, for hosting this series on his Twitch channel. Shout out to Snipe for hosting the CPL, and Strom for keeping everything just as equally organized. Please, tune in next. I believe that was looking back. Yeah, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. EDT. Taitu will be going over another little lecture, and this time it's going to be upon mining efficiency. So make sure you tune in if you have, questions, or you just want to see some more learning materials. Thank you, and good night, goodbye, good morning, wherever you guys are.